అవునండి. కనిపిస్తుంది నాకు. అక్కడ రికార్డింగ్ స్టార్ట్ అవుతుంది అప్పుడు. Yeah.
Good morning, friends. Today, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Sunil Samsani providing me an opportunity to share my views with you all the friends. Today the topic for discussion: admissibility of documents in civil cases with the aid of the provisions of Stamp Act and Registration Act. So you all know, every day as a legal practitioner we are surfacing the documents, its admissibility and receiving of documents. Therefore, as a practitioner, I want to share the documents, its impact and the role in adjudicating the claims of the rights of the parties. So that way, before adverting the legal enforceability and impact of a document, first of all, I want to enlighten you, rather I want to share with you the definition part of documents, where the foundation is laid in order to ascertain the genuineness or otherwise of a particular document. So before that, just I want to define what is the document and the definitions, more particularly Transfer of Property Act, Registration Act. Now, in the given circumstances, it is necessary, while interpreting a document, we need to read the provisions of Transfer of Property Act and Registration Act harmoniously in order to ascertain and adjudicate the rights of the parties. So both are intertwined. In that backdrop, now I want to draw your kind attention insofar as the definition. You all know the Transfer of Property Act plays a vital role apart from Registration Act, and as such, first of all, I want to draw your attention the definition of transfer of property. So section 5 of Transfer of Property Act defines what is transfer of property. Transfer of property means an act by which a living person conveys property in present or in future to one or more other living persons or to himself and one or more other living persons, and to transfer property is to perform such act. So this is the definition of transfer of property under section 5 of TP Act. And similarly, section 8, which is also an important one under TP Act, operation of transfer. Unless a different intention is expressed or necessarily implied, a transfer of property passes forthwith to the transferee all the interest which the transferor is capable of being passing the same. So the another important section under TP Act is section 54 of TP Act, which defines sale. So the definition of sale is clearly described under section 54. Sale in case of immovable property of the value 100 rupees and upwards, it must be through a registered instrument, and that transfer must be with the consideration and delivery of possession. So, in the similar lines, the important provisions I want to share with you is with regard to Registration Act. So, Section 17, you all know that any immovable property worth more than 100 rupees, it is a compulsory registrable document. So, coming to Section 35 of Stamp Act, instrument admissible in evidence without its impounding. That is, instruments not duly stamped are inadmissible in evidence. That is Section 35 of Stamp Act. Sorry, TP Act. Coming to this Section 49 of Registration Act, where what is the effect of non-registration of documents? So, provisos to Section 49 is important. Here, in Section 49 of Registration Act, there is a proviso where an agreement of sale in a suit for specific performance does not require registration. So that is the proviso. So these are the sections, and also we can discuss about the nature of documents. Initially, what is the nature of document and how a document can be gone into, how we can ascertain that a particular document is so and so, or how to identify a particular document is the important. Assuming for a moment a client comes to us and places a document in our hands and seeks advice that what is the suit, what is the nature of relief, how his rights need to be protected. So he do not know anything except placing the document in our hands. Then burden is on our shoulder to ascertain what is the nature of document, how the rights and liabilities of that person based on that document can be adjudicated upon, is to be looked into. So that onerous responsibility is shouldered on a counsel or a legal practitioner when a litigant places a document in his hands. From there, the job of a legal practitioner will start. How he can ascertain and how he has to evaluate what is the nature of document, how the document can be read together, what is the just conclusion that can be derived upon after going through the contents. These are the factors which need to be adjudicated before concluding that this document is a so-and-so document or otherwise. So you all know well, basically the right in a immovable property would be derived three types. One is by succession, that is what we call inheritance, and another is by purchase under registered sale deed, and third one is a decree from a competent civil court. So these are the three modes where a right in a immovable property shall be accrued. So when that being the backdrop of accruing a right in a immovable property, then we have to evaluate what is the document. In general, when a document is placed before us, more particularly unregistered document, you are all well aware that every registered document had a presumption holding that it is a genuine one, unless and until it is sought for cancellation or contrary is proved. So that way the registered document has its presumption, though its pros and cons can be discussed later. Whether you are also aware, mere execution of registered document ipso facto does not convey any semblance of interest or right unless and until the vendor possesses alienable right or saleable interest. That is another limb of a registered document. We will discuss it later. But there are two types of documents. One is an unregistered document and other one is a registered document. If you come to a registered document, there are several documents. One is registered sale deed, registered gift deed, partition deed, relinquishment deed, deed of exchange. So this way, there are several documents insofar as registered documents are concerned. So far as unregistered document is concerned, there we had a great responsibility. Simply, if an unregistered document is placed before me with a heading stating that Vikraya Dastavezu, that is, we can assume that it means that the nomenclature or heading of a document, if defines or reads as a sale deed, we cannot come to a just conclusion that it is a sale deed. The primary distinction is the heading or nomenclature of document is not determinative or decisive. Only after going through the recitals of a document, we need to come to a conclusion that whether it is a sale deed or an agreement of sale or a will deed or a gift deed, relinquishment or deed of exchange. So that way we have to read the recitals of entire document in order to ascertain the intention of the parties in recording the terms in the document. So in an unregistered document, assuming for a moment, if entire sale consideration is paid, possession is delivered, then we can say that the ingredients of sale, the ingredients of a conveyance deed is forthcoming by virtue of the recitals in the said document. When that being the backdrop of recitals in that unregistered document, that is, possession is delivered, entire sale consideration is paid, then we can say that it is out and out a sale deed. So when once it is a sale deed, as per the recitals of the document, law says that it is mandatorily registerable as contemplated under section 17(2) of Registration Act. So when this unregistered document denotes deliver a possession and sale consideration, it cannot be received in evidence for want of mandatory registration. So now, in that particular backdrop, if that document placed in our hands is an unregistered document, when the content speaks that it is out and out sale deed, then how the remedy, how the rights of the such person shall be protected, and what are the provisions that will govern in that particular backdrop of an unregistered document. Assuming for a moment, so when the document is an unregistered document, naturally it cannot be received in evidence, be that as it may. Then the provisions of Stamp Act mandates under section 38(2) of Stamp Act, it facilitates to get the document impounded, and for that purpose, if an unregistered document is placed in our hands, when we file a suit based on that, there we have to draft the pleadings based on the contents of the document. So the pleadings plays a vital role, and the immense importance of the pleadings are very much there. So based on the document available with us, we need to follow scrupulously the recitals of the document. Then we have to draft a plaint in consonance with the document in our hand, so as to adjudicate the claim of the person for just conclusion and getting the relief claimed. So under those circumstances, that document, in order to get it exhibited, law says that when it is a sale deed, as just now we read, it cannot be exhibited and it cannot be received evidence. The only recourse is, in order to get that unregistered document at least exhibited, we need to seek its impounding before the concern. Earlier there was an RDO who is competent enough to impound a document. Now the government has given GO. Thereafter, now it is the concerned registrar who is competent to impound a document based on the basic value register as on the date of execution of document by imposing 10 times penalty. So this is only a physical legislation. Impounding a document, payment of stamp duty and penalty is only a measurement to enable the government by way of physical policy and to enable the revenue cannot be deprived of. So Assuming for a moment, if a sale lead, unregistered sale lead is impounded, stamp duty penalty is paid. If it is placed before us, when compared with a registered sale lead, definitely, though the document is impounded, but it cannot be equated with that of a registered sale lead. So, a registered sale lead and an unregistered sale lead is placed in our hands. Naturally, precedence will be given to a registered sale lead. Though the unregistered document is impounded, necessary stamp duty and penalty is paid. So, in that way, even if it is, even the courts have no discretion, because nowadays we used to file a petition and our opponent used to file a counter, no, this document is inadmissible, therefore it cannot be impounded and it cannot be sent to the stamp collector for assessing stamp duty and penalty. But under section 38(2), it is well settled law that court has no discretion. If a party approaches the court and files a petition in a suit to refer a particular unregistered document for the purpose of impounding, so that discretion is not there to the court. When that discretion is not to the court, naturally our opponent's defense can also be non-suited in that direction. So when the document is impounded and returned to the court, while marking, you all know that mere impounding document does not tantamount to proof. Receiving of document is one step, proving of document is another step. So it cannot be said that simply because that I have paid stamp duty and penalty, my document can be straightaway received and exhibited as evidence, and it have its impact. So I want to convey you is admission of document does not dispense the proof. Proof is another era. Admission of document is another era. Now, when the stamp duty penalty is paid, when the person who tenders the document, law is very clear that when that recitals denotes delivery of possession, entire sale consideration is paid, though it is impounded, it cannot be exhibited in evidence. So in this regard, the law is very clear, that is settled possession as on date is, it cannot be received evidence though it is impounded, because it is denoting the primary purpose. Here, friends, a thin difference is there so as to ascertain in getting a document, because an unregistered sale deed, if impounded, is produced before the court, the law is, that is the dictum, rather ratio by way of arbiter dicta and ratio by the apex courts as on date is very clear that it cannot be received evidence for primary purpose, because delivery of possession is not a primary purpose. So therefore, it cannot be received because it hit under section 17 of Registration Act and section 49 of Registration Act. Therefore, it can be received only for collateral purpose. So that way, an unregistered document, though impounded, cannot be received in evidence. Hey, Annie? End video. Okay, end video అని వచ్చింది. End video అని వచ్చింది. Okay, sorry friends for interruption. Now we are at the stage of marking a document. So marking a document of an unregistered sale deed is have the legal impact in that direction. This is the document which can be received or not. Assume for a moment you all know that sale deed is different from that of an agreement of sale. Always in an agreement of sale, the rights and obligations of the vendor and vendee still remain to be performed. So that is the reason a proviso is facilitated under Section 49 of Registration Act that an agreement of sale can be received in evidence in a suit for specific performance, because agreement of sale is not a concluded contract. A registered sale deed is a concluded contract. So in that direction, Section 49 provides that proviso. Right? We can analyze what is the agreement of sale and registered sale deed. In an agreement of sale, still rights and obligations of the parties were left over. Assuming for a moment that A entered into an agreement of sale with B to purchase a property for 100 rupees, he paid only 10 rupees. Thereafter, the burden is shouldered on the vendor and the vendee that the vendee has to pay the 90 rupees balance consideration and vendor has to execute the sale deed. Then only it is a concluded contract. So before execution of registered sale deed, that agreement of sale is not a concluded contract. Therefore, an agreement of sale can straightaway be received in evidence and exhibited, provided under proviso under Section 49 of Registration Act. So that is the difference between the agreement of sale and sale deed. Coming to a registered document. So I am generalizing what is the impact and its effect so far as sale deed and unregistered document. Everybody presumes that a sale deed is sufficient when a registered document is in our hands. No doubt the title is with us, but that is not the law. Simply because a registered document is executed, it cannot be said that it is a valid title deed in certain given circumstances. Because the primary thing which need to be looked into is if vendor possesses alienable right and saleable interest, then only if he executes a registered sale deed, the title will be flown to the purchaser. So here that need to be looked into. Assuming for a moment, if X is having 1000 square yards and he is the owner of 1000 square yards, he executes a registered sale deed already that 1000 square yards to Y. And thereafter, with an afterthought by misrepresenting the facts and the factum of earlier alienation, dishonestly he executes another document for 200 square yards in favor of Z after 1000 square yards which he has already sold to the entire extent. Then the registered document executed in favor of Z is of no consequence and it does not denote any semblance of right or title. When the dispute arose in between prior purchaser and latter purchaser, then TPA Act is very clear in that direction that prior sale deed shall prevail over the latter sale deed. Because here simple, both are registered documents, no doubt. But here is the vendor who possessed 1000 square yards had already sold to Y under a registered document by proper conveyance. When again he sells any part of that 1000 square yards to Z, though it might be a registered sale deed, but the registered sale deed of Z is of no consequence. Therefore, when the dispute arose in between Y and Z, the registered sale deed in favor of Y holds good prevail over then the registered sale deed of Z. Therefore, what law says? Prior sale deed shall prevail over the latter sale deed. So, in this direction also, that is the reason rights and liabilities of seller and purchaser was defined under TPA Act in clear terms before concluding a contract. So that way, mere because that there was a registered document in my hand, it cannot be said that valid title is with me. So the title will flow to the purchaser, though it might be a registered document, but as on the date of execution of registered sale deed, the vendor must possess alienable right and saleable interest. Then only he is entitled to convey and he is entitled to protect. That is the reason the Honorable Apex Court and our High Courts time and again said, mere execution of registered document ipso facto does not convey any semblance of interest or right unless and until the vendor possesses alienable right or saleable interest. So that way, registered document is also having a rider, though it is a notice to the whole world. When once a registered document is in my hands, in respect of that particular land, It is a notice to the whole world. But with this particular rider, only the registered document will have its prevalence in the eye of law. So that is one aspect. And coming to another important point, we have discussed about the registered sale deed. But another area is a registered gift deed. You all know that a gift deed is defined in section 122 of TP Act. So you all know that the definition of gift is transfer of certain existing movable or immovable property voluntarily without consideration by one person called donor to another called donee. So this is the area where a registered gift deed. So insofar as gift deed is concerned, even though a donor executes a document without consideration, but he has no right to unilaterally cancel that gift deed. So any registered document, though it might be a registered sale deed or a gift deed or a registered sale cum GPA, deed of exchange, whatever it may be, any registered instrument, once registered, it cannot be cancelled by any one of the party to that document by way of unilateral cancellation. And it is only the competent civil court alone can cancel a registered document. So neither the registrar nor any one of the party is not entitled to meddle with that document unless and until a competent civil court cancels the document. So merely because that it is a gift deed, it cannot be cancelled. In the similar lines, deed of exchange. Though deed of exchange is a transfer of property from one to other mutually, but it also requires registration. Similar lines, deed of relinquishment. It also requires compulsory registrable document insofar as transferring the rights of the parties are concerned. And I want to share with you regarding the unregistered document. Can a person holding an unregistered document, that is what now I have drawn your attention, that unregistered document is the sole basis of that person who has been consistently saying that based on this document I am in possession and I am having my title. So when the true owner denies or otherwise a better document evidence, in that backdrop, can the person holding this unregistered document will file a suit for declaration of title? No. Law is made clear that a person holding an unregistered document in his hands, he cannot file a suit for declaration of title since his document denotes recording of delivery of portion and entire consideration, which is the sole basis. Therefore, he cannot seek declaration. So, another rider for an unregistered document, that a person holding an unregistered document is not entitled to file a suit for declaration of title. So, you all know that a suit for possessory title can also be filed, but it is in a different footing. Provided if we could able to establish settled possession over the property, and when this unregistered document is not the primary document, when there is other documentary evidence available for us continuously to qualify our settled possession in accordance with the provisions of law, unless that be complied, we are not entitled to file a suit for declaratory of title, a suit for declaration of title based on possession. So this is another area where an unregistered document is not permitted to seek declaration of title. You all know the suits in general we are filing the injunction suit based on agreement of sale. In general, an unregistered document denotes delivery of possession, and first in point of time an agreement of sale, followed by delivery of possession through another document. It shall be read as a sale deed. In that backdrop, when my right is denied based on this document, another area is we used to file an injunction suit apprehending threat to our possession. But That is not correct, because so long as there is a recital in the agreement of sale that at future point of time I will execute a sale deed, though entire consideration is paid, possession is delivered under that unregistered document, still we have to file a suit for specific performance for conveying title to us by way of registered sale deed. So under those circumstances, when dispute arose, we need to file a suit for specific performance, but not simple injunction, because Order 2 Rule 2, subclass 3 debars us to make a claim based on the agreement of sale for injunction simpliciter without there being any suit for specific performance, because cause of action accrues to us for both the reliefs. So you cannot segregate that relief and relinquish it by omitting it, since there is a bar under Order 2 Rule 2. So for example, I am holding an agreement of sale, and that agreement of sale was not concluded with contract by registered sale deed. In those circumstances, what is the job we need to do is we have to file suit for specific performance, or else we have to file a petition seeking leave from the court that at future point of time I am reserving cause of action for comprehensive relief, since I am apprehending threat of possession, therefore I am filing the suit. So unless and until that was not there, the suit is not sustainable, and the injunction suit will deprive our right of primary relief of specific performance under the given circumstances in view of the bar under Order 2 Rule 2 subclass 3. In these circumstances, another point I want to bring to your kind notice, that civil cases and criminal cases, for only discussion purpose, any judgment of a criminal court is not binding on the civil court, but any judgment, a decree or order of a civil court is binding on the criminal court. So this is an important area where the people used to bring a judgment in criminal case stating that it was an acquittal judgment, therefore it will help us in other way by possession or otherwise. But absolutely that findings in criminal case is not at all admissible in civil case, and the civil case is governed by the provisions just now we read. So that is another aspect where we need to deal the issues. And I want to discuss another important area, whether a registered agreement of sale cum GPA can be equated with a registered sale deed. Nowadays, in order to avoid revenue to the government, people are obtaining a registered document with its description, a registered agreement of sale cum GPA. And they started arguing that the first part of registered agreement of sale cum GPA reveals that first part says that entire consideration is paid, possession is delivered. And the same document in the second part says that the purchaser is my GPA and is authorized to defend and he is authorized to take steps in alienating the property. So put together, it was considered as one document, registered agreement of sale cum GPA. Then the question arose before the Honorable Apex Court whether such a document can be equated with a registered sale deed. Then the Honorable Apex Court made it very clear, rather abundantly held, that no, a registered agreement of sale cum GPA cannot be a title deed unless and until sale deed is executed. Though the possession is delivered and consideration is paid in former document, but it is coupled with GPA. Therefore, it has not given effect of sale deed. Therefore, a known judgment, Suraj Lamp case, we heard it. There are two parts, two values of Suraj Lamp case. One is 2009 and other is 2011. where the Honorable Apex Court made it clear, and several findings were given in that particular two judgments. That is sequel one, first one, and there was sequel, and it was not finally adjudicated upon, and it was referred to larger bench by the Apex Court for ascertaining whether it can be equated with the sale deed, since the ingredients are forthcoming as of a sale. However, the Honorable Apex Court made it clear that it cannot be a sale deed. So the Suraj Lamp case is a famous case in this direction, which we can say as on date with all audacity that an agreement of sale cum GPA is not valid as a sale deed, and it cannot be equated as sale deed. But if a person possessed with agreement of sale cum GPA, if he executes a sale deed in favor of X or Y, then that X or Y is having valid title deed, and that registered document is valid as if it is a genuine document insofar as registration is concerned. So that is the legal impediment created in between registered sale deed and sale cum GPA. This has to be noted, where this was at length discussed in Suraj Lamp case in 2009 and 2011. So this is another area where we need to discuss about the agreement of sale cum GPA and registered sale deed. And coming to the other area is a deed of partition. So you all know, in general, in villages more particularly, they used to write deed of partitions in Telugu or without any stamp, saying that X and Y partitioned the properties and allotted shares with so and so, so and so. So when a deed of partition is executed in between the persons entitled to partition, law says that a deed of partition is also a compulsory registerable document. There are divergent opinions, but one thing is made very clear, that a deed of partition is registerable, compulsory registerable. But the exceptions are otherwise facilitating the precedents by the Apex Court are, assuming for a moment, X and Y executes a document in the shape of partition or punch faisla or list of partition, where the Honorable Apex Court held in the year 1988, when there is a factum of past partition is recited in the document, when it is only an arrangement being effected which was already being enjoyed by the parties with severance of status by metes and bounds, in those circumstances, that punch faisla or list which was reduced into writing need not be required to be registered. But a document of partition, assuming for a moment today a document is executed in between X and Y, who being the joint owners or co-partners entitled to partition by one way or other. If that document, if the reciters speak that today only A and B partition the properties and X property is allotted to and Y property allotted to B, then in those circumstances, if those recitals are forthcoming in that particular document, it is compulsory registerable, which is very clear, and the judgments are to that effect are very clear. So in these circumstances, I want to also share with you the legal position with regard to precedents in this direction. So and another area after exhibiting document is the proof. That is also another important burden of proof. So you all know section 101 to 114 of Evidence Act deals with burden of proof. Section 101, he who asserts must prove. Section 103, he who wishes to presume the existence of a particular fact must prove. So burden of proof never shifts, but onus of proof always shifts. It is like a pendulum. It is a continuous process of evaluation of evidence. So 101 and 103, including 106 and 110 of Evidence Act, plays vital role. So when that being the case, so burden of proof always on a person who asserts a particular fact. By considering 101 to 114 of Evidence Act, another important area where we need to look into is Order 12, Rule 6. So, an admission. This is also an important. And also Section 58 of Indian Evidence Act. An admitted fact need not be proved. So, in consonance with Order 12, Rule 6, in consonance with Section 58 of Evidence Act, if compared with Section 101 to 103 of Evidence Act, two things need to be evaluated. One is, if there is no admission of a particular fact, what is the burden shouldered on a person who is asserting a right? Assume for a moment, if plaintiff files a suit based on unregistered document, heavy burden is on his shoulder to prove not only its execution and also his entitlement for the relief. But when a registered document is filed in the court, when it is not specifically denied, when it was not sought for cancellation, it has its presumption. And it need not be proved by even calling the attestors to that document, since it is a public document or otherwise, under Section 74 of Evidence Act. Another important area I want to share with you is, if there was an admission, can a suit filed by the plaintiff based on such admission in the written statement be decreed? This is important. Recently, of our own High Court, Justice P.V. Sanjay Kumar Garu, in a reported judgment of Rangareddy District Court, I'll give the citation including the judgment of the Apex Court, AR 2000, where it was held that X borrowed me from Y, where Y is residing in abroad. And when he has corresponded through email, X admitted, no, definitely I owe to you, I will pay the money. So this was the electronic evidence available with the Y. Then X did not comply his obligation in repaying the loan. Then in order to get the loan back or to liquidate the same otherwise, then Y filed a suit. Then X filed a written statement saying that no, I am not liable to pay, I have not received any amount, therefore the suit need to be dismissed. Then the trial court, since the plaintiff not proved by adducing cogent convincing evidence, therefore the suit is dismissed. When that was carried to the Honorable High Court, then High Court said, no, in aid with the provisions of Section 65B of Evidence Act, and in view of the electronic evidence available by way of email, then it is held. It is an admission under Order 12 Rule 6, it need to be decreed. Then the judgment of the trial court, based on that email, it was set aside, and the suit for the recovery of money is decreed by the Honorable High Court. So this was the efficacy, rather importance of an admission in a pleading. So that is the reason you all know that pleadings plays a vital role. It has its immense importance. Therefore, the purity of pleadings can be looked into by the parties based on the plaint and as well as written statement. So, in this background, this admission under Order 12 Rule 6 plays a vital role, including Section 58 of Evidence Act. Even assume for a moment, if anybody wants to quit his own admission, again a rider under Section 115 of Evidence Act stops him. If any person by a declaration makes an assertion in the shape of pleading, subsequently was stopped to deny that pleading, which mandates under Section 115 of Evidence Act. By considering all these provisions under Section 57 of Evidence Act, a judicial notice can also be taken into account by the courts while adjudicating the rival claims and rival pleadings in the backdrop of withdrawing the admissions or otherwise, just now we read. And another area where we want to go through is regarding the I want to share and discuss by referring with the precedents which would enable the true intention. So now, first of all, I want to discuss with regard to the document, that is more particularly the unregistered document, where it is clearly made held agreement of agreement holder cannot claim title unless he files a suit for specific performance and obtains a decree by way of registered sale deed with due process. That was held. I request friends, please permit me to refer the precedents where the Honorable Apex Court and our High Court made it clear insofar as the documentary evidence and its admissibility. So now 2013 6 ALT 535, which says that always an agreement holder to claim title shall file a suit for specific performance and then only is entitled to have a decree. In the similar lines, an unregistered agreement of sale can be received in evidence for relief of specific performance, as held by the Honorable Apex Court recently, is reported in 2018, volume 5 ALD, page number 1 SC. So, we have already discussed it. If a document is compulsory registrable, it is not admissible in evidence. And for that purpose, 2013 6 ALT 205. So, even if it is stamp duty is penalties paid. And another important area where just now we have discussed with the Suraj Lam case is agreement of sale cum GPA is not a deed of conveyance or a sale as per Registration Act, is held by a precedent reported in 2016 5 ALT 337. So another important aspect, agreement of sale if followed by delivery of possession either on that day of agreement of sale or at future point of time, it is chargeable as a registered sale, as a sale by way of conveyance. That is held in 2019 6 ALT 333. So even in unregistered sale deed, it is held that an unregistered sale deed can be received in evidence for collateral purpose, but not to prove the acquisition of title under that document, but only to show nature of possession as collateral to the sale transaction, which is reported in 2019 volume 6 ALT 344 TS. So just now I have drawn your attention that a possessory suit can be filed based on possessory title. That was also held. A suit can be filed based on possessory title under Article 64 and 65 of Limitation Act. And another area where it was held in 2019 3 ALD 297, which is also important, which has considered the provisions of section 17 and 49 of Registration Act. So, payment of total consideration, transfer of possession, delivery of possession, but still the document is not admissible since delivery of possession is not divisible from transfer recorded in sale deed. This is reported 2019 3 ALD 297. So this is the area where we are discussing section 17 and 49 of Registration Act. And just now we have discussed about an agreement of sale can be received in a suit for specific performance, which the Honorable Apex Court held the same, a recent one, that is 2018 IALD page 1 Supreme Court. And another thing regarding Raising objection. This is also important. Raising objection. Can a person, rather an opponent or defendant, can raise an objection if a document is sought to be marked by our opponent? Yes. Under 13 Rule 3 contemplates raising objection if any document is sought to be marked. So there was divergent opinion of Honorable High Courts time and again that if a document is marked as an exhibit without objection, it cannot be objected at any point of time subsequently. But some of the judgment says that if a document is marked which is not permitted to be marked in law, then at any point of time it can be de-exhibited under Article 13 Rule 3. So these are the divergent opinions insofar as objection is concerned. So I want to rely upon those precedents insofar as document can be objected or not. 2014 2 ALD 426 says that an objection can be raised at any stage. But 2016 2 ALT 321, improper documents, even if marked without objection, subsequently it can be reviewed. So this is one aspect of objection. But recent judgment of 2020 of AP High Court says that, so M.V. Ramana, he says that no, once a document has been admitted, such objection cannot be taken at any stage, including appellate stage. That is reported. This is the judgment of the Apex Court. I will come to later regarding this judgment of M.V. Ramana of AP High Court. This is 2020, volume 1, ALT, page number 1, Supreme Court. So this is the field now governs. So earlier documents, earlier judgments, de-exhibiting of document under section 36, once exhibited, is barred. That is also made it very clear in various judgments reported. So this is, and another point we have now discussed is court has no option to decline for impounding the document, which is a reported judgment. Please note 2019 5 ALD 147. Similar 2005 6 ALT 519. And this is the document and its objection. And everybody in general parlance, a layman says that no, a document or rather a property given at the time of marriage or under Pasupu Kunkuma, it did not require registration and it can be an unregistered document. But at the time of Agricultural Land Ceiling Holdings Act in the year 1975, there was a precedent to that effect, but that law was changed. Even a property conveyed under Pasupu Kunkuma, TPA Act is very clear that it requires compulsory registration, which is reported in 2007 1 ALT 312. So this is the document which requires compulsory registration. And another, if document is not impounded as a sale, the same cannot be received evidence under section 35 of Stamp Act unless it is impounded on section 33 of Stamp Act, which is reported in 2018 5 ALT 405. So this is the area where the document and its objections, these are the precedents which now we have discussed. And in the similar lines, I want to share with you, title cannot be transferred under unregistered sale deed. registration is mandatory to confer title, which is reported 2014 5 ALT, page number 714. And just now we have discussed about the judgment on admissions in aid with the provisions of Order 12 Rule 6 and Section 58 of Evidence Act, where it is held that a fact which is reduced into writing, it need not be proved in view of Section 58 of Evidence Act. This is the significance insofar as 58 of Evidence Act is concerned. That was reported, admitted fact need not be proved. In 2016, 6 volume ALT 778. And another important point which I have missed the link is, assume for a moment, if a document is tendered and the opponent of that document being unregistered one insists upon the court cannot postpone the objection for its impounding. Then when objection is raised regarding admissibility of document, the court has no option, rather discretion, to postpone it. It is the bounden duty of the court to decide that objection then and there, and it cannot bypass it when the opponent of that particular document raises that objection, which is reported in accordance with Order 13 Rule 3, Section 30.47A of Act, reported in 2012, Volume 4, ALT 288. And another important aspect, marking of a document in interlocutory application cannot be considered and as a right in state away can be marked in a suit. So that rider is also there under which 2006 volume 4 ALT 683, where marking of a document in IA is not admissible in suit. Objection can be raised in trial. So this precedent is very clear insofar as this particular document and its nature are concerned. And in the similar lines, I want to share with you the important precedent regarding the burden of proof and onus of proof, that is 2013 1 SCJ, page 601, where the Honorable Apex Court made it clear that burden of proof always lies on the person, but it is only the onus of proof which shifts. Therefore, onus of proof is a continuing process of evaluation of evidence. And another point, assume for a moment, when I have no right over a particular property, if I execute a sale deed over that particular property in favor of X, what is the fate of that registered sale deed held by X? Absolutely, that document is of no consequence. That even the Honorable High Court is made clear. Title to property. When vendor has no title to property, purchaser of such property from him did not get any better title. That is the principle of law is a man cannot convey more than what he possesses. So whatever right with me only can be transferable. I cannot assume and guard the property of others to be transferred in favor of another, either to by a registered document or otherwise. In such situations, such registered is of no consequence. That what the Honorable High Court held 2015 5 ALT 627. So when vendor has no title, he cannot convey any better title to the purchaser. In the similar lines, another important area, assume for a moment a case is already pending between the parties in respect of a property. The plaintiff in that particular suit had transferred the suit held property in favor of third person, and litigation went on. The purchaser, that is the pendent purchaser, third party, did not implead it, and he has no audience, rather he has not canvassed his case, stating that I am a pendent purchaser, though 52 of TP Act bars pendente nihil innovator. What law says that pending litigation, no new thing shall be introduced. Despite the fact that the plaintiff had parted the property during the pendency of the suit and sold the sale. What is the fate and efficacy of that registered sale deed? Can he be considered as a bona fide purchaser? Can the right will accrue to that person based on that registered document being hit under 52 TP Act? So the Honorable Apex Court made it clear. Instead of making a process laborious and making that person to implead under 1 Rule 10 being a necessary or proper party, whatnot it may be, held that so long as the litigation is pending, his document is in dark, rather in cold storage, because he is a pendent lite purchaser. When the plaintiff got the decree in his favor in respect of that property, in such backdrop, pendent lite purchaser will be protected and he would become the bona fide purchaser. This is an important aspect where we need to educate ourselves, where the Honorable High Court by way of full bench judgment, it is made clear. 2006 6 ALT 523. This is a full bench judgment where transfer to property does not pass to transferee if transferor is made by a person without title, and this is can be done in the event if he gets the title. So this way, so what law says that even a pendent lite purchaser, if he is vendor, is protected or it obtains a decree, definitely his sale deed will have prevalence and its darkness will be cleared by virtue of that judgment. And another point, settled possession, the important area. You all know that already a case of Warangal, which Anantala Sudhakar, where the Honorable Apex Court, it is reported in the year 2008. It is a famous case called as Anantala Sudhakar, which case came up from Warangal, where it is held clearly that when an injunction suit has to be filed, when a declaration suit has to be filed, when a recovery of possession suit has to be filed, was categorically evaluated by the Honorable Apex Court in clear terms. If everybody goes through the judgment of the Honorable Apex Court reported by way of Anantala Sudhakar, we can evaluate under what circumstances we can file an injunction suit, when we have to file a declaration suit coupled with recovery of possession under section 34 of specific fact. So Anantala Sudhakar judgment plays a vital role insofar as the reliefs that we can claim, whether we can go for injunction, whether we can go for declaration, recovery of possession. So that judgment is very clear in that field. And in similar lines, everybody we used to call every day in as usually that if a person is in possession, he is entitled for injunction. True. But the law in this field is also a judgment of Apex Court, where the Honorable Apex Court, in a famous case known as Ramagowda versus Vardappa Naidu, reported in 2004, 4 volume SCC 764, where the Honorable Apex Court held that if a person is in settled possession, be that he being a true owner, cannot dispose that person. Therefore, he is entitled to protect his possession by way of permanent injunction, though he being a trespasser. But the wording that was used by the Honorable Apex Court even followed till date and holds the field is, if a person is in settled possession over a property, though he is not having any title, if a even true owner comes and objects, still in that backdrop, that person in settled possession is entitled to have an injunction against the true owner also. Then we can discuss what is the remedy of a true owner when there is no document of title, when there is no extinguishment of right, when his right was not divested to the purchaser, when he is still holding his right as a vested owner. Then the law says that that true owner need to file a suit for recovery of possession, though he has not executed any document. That is the prominence for settled possession. So this is the field where Honorable Apex Court, Ramagowda versus Varadappa Naidu, which is being followed as on date, that if a person is in settled possession, he cannot be disposed of by force, even by true owner. If the remedy true owner wants, he can file suit for recovery of possession and eject that trespasser, even otherwise. This is the law where, insofar as trespasser and settled possession is concerned. So that is the reason settled possession, even 2010 3 ALT 225. And another routine point we all know, section 91 and 92 of Evidence Act. Exclusion of oral evidence in the place of documentary evidence. Assuming for a moment that we are having a documentary evidence in respect to a particular fact, a particular property. When against that document, any amount of oral evidence, you all know section 134, quality of evidence, it is not the quantity of evidence that requires for consideration. When that is the case, what law says, any amount of oral evidence contradicting the contents of a document is inadmissible in law. So that protection was given under section 92(4) of Indian Evidence Act. Exclusion of oral evidence in the place of documentary evidence. That discussed in 2010 6 ALT 567, which prohibits a party to state anything contrary to the recitals of a document. So another important aspect, we all used to say that if a person comes with 20 years of municipal tax and house tax receipts, Gram Panchayat receipts, say that, sir, I am having title, my right is perfected, more than 12 years, so on and so forth. But what law says, what the Honorable Apex Court made it clear recently, that 2019 1 ALT, page number 12, Supreme Court, that conferring title, mere documents, that is municipal permissions, tax receipts, does not confer any right. And the title, they imply only possession, but cannot be relied upon to confer title. So that is the reason earlier we discussed that in a declaration of title an unregistered document cannot be considered. So this is the judgment of the Apex Court, holds the field in the recent past. And I want to rely upon the other area where, regarding the partition, just I want to submit two precedents of partition, what we have already discussed. Whether a document is a partition deed or punch faisla or punch list can be gathered only after going through the recitals, which was held made clear that the entire contents of document can alone be taken into account in order to ascertain the nature of document. It cannot be segregated, right? Assuming for a moment, you all know that a will is not a compulsory registrable document. It is only a compulsory attestable document. So in that backdrop, a person executes a document. In that backdrop, what he says, in first part, he will execute a sale deed in respect of a particular property. In second part, he will execute in the same document, he will bequeath a property, saying that after so and so is my legatee to enjoy the property. So when multiple transactions, rather nature of documents were put together in one document, what is the efficacy of that document? Then tomorrow, if we want to mark that document, definitely my opponent will say that no, the document, how it can be marked? When it denotes deliver a possession and entire sale consideration of a particular property, then it is compulsory registrable. Then other limb of the document, other part of the document, speaks that it is only a bequeathment made in respect of another property. Then law said, no, it can be marked, and that part of sale deed can be segregated. And to the extent of bequeathment in favor of legatee, being a beneficial owner, he is entitled to enjoy, since the will is not compulsory registrable document. Therefore, to that extent of averments referred to can be exhibited. That means a document which a part in part can be also be received in evidence to that extent, ignoring the other part. So this is the facility, this is the law where the Honorable Apex Court made it clear. I will also refer that precedent that a part document can also be marked. provided what now said, if a particular property is a bequeathment, because will is only optional, registration is optional. You know, only need to be complied with the provisions of Section 68 of Evidence Act. That when it comes to prove, there must be two attesters. We have to examine one of the attester, and in obedience to the provisions of 63 of Succession Act. So in that way, a part document can also be exhibited. If not, it can be by number for the convenience. So that is another area where we need to see, and we need not ignore that no particular piece of document, since it cannot be segregated. It is not the law. So that is there. I will also give that judgment. Another point, the Honorable Apex Court made it clear that, right, if a partition deed is not registered, it can be received in evidence, then not for primary purpose, but to show collateral purpose. That way, 2016 volume 3 SCJ 564. In a suit for partition, unregistered document can be relied upon for collateral purpose, but not primary purpose of division of joint family property by metes and bounds. I have already discussed initially with you what is the primary purpose and collateral purpose. Primary purpose, if possession is delivered, sale consideration is paid in that document, it can be said that it is a primary purpose and it is not a collateral transaction. So here also the partition deed, we have already discussed about that. That is one area where we need to proceed. And another important point, relinquishment of a claim is also requires compulsory registration. Assuming for a moment X and Y purchased a property jointly, then X wants to relinquish his joint right in favor of Y. In that backdrop also, it is not that he can relinquish by executing a simple document, which law says, no, it is a compulsory registrable document. 2019, 3 ALT, 216 Supreme Court. Assuming for a moment, even this is another important aspect where I want to dwell into. Nowadays, what happens if a person, by obtaining agreement of sale followed by delivery of possession by way of receipt, and usually they used to obtain a notary, and they used to obtain affidavit enclosed to the agreement of sale and delivery of possession receipt, saying that one of the contents of my agreement of sale, delivery of possession, true, valid, holds good. In these circumstances, what happened? A precedent, which is an essential one, where based on the unregistered agreement of sale followed by possession, a person effected mutation of property is named from the municipality. In Warangal Municipal Corporation, an unregistered notarized agreement of sale followed by delivery of possession followed by affidavit duly notarized by learned veteran advocates, it was presented, and the municipality based on that effected mutation in favor of the persons based on that agreement of sale. Then it was challenged before. That is the judgment pertaining to Warangal Municipal Corporation. That mutation based on unregistered document effected by the municipality was assailed before the Honorable High Court, where the Honorable High Court, way back in the year 2008, 1 ALT 103, has held that no, mutation cannot be done based on an unregistered document. Mutation can be done only based on registered sale deed or registered document. So this is judgment where the area where we are supposed to ponder upon with regard to adjudication of the situation. And another, just now I have bar of subsequent suit, which is an important one, where day in and day out we have to ascertain and adjudicate how we can file the suit, what is the nature and relinquishment of the claim. This is 2020 volume 2 ALD 109 page number, Supreme Court. It clearly has, when plaintiff, I want to repeat, 2020 volume 2 ALD page number 109 Supreme Court, His Lordship Justice D.Y. Chandrachud and Rastogi. This was a judgment based on Order 2, Rule 2, Subclause 3 CPC. When plaintiff is entitled to sue for specific performance, when earlier suit for injunction was instituted, and omitted to do so without leave of the court, it is barred under section 20 and 38 of Special Relief Act. That now earlier I have discussed. Because simply by apprehending threat of disposition, if an agreement holder by showing some possession by way of panis or some tax receipts, if he files a suit without seeking leave from the court while filing that suit, that I am reserving cause of action for comprehensive relief under Article 54 of Special Relief Act, my limitation is there. In that way, if he files a suit, then if leave is granted, he is entitled, provided the limitation otherwise. If without seeking leave, if state away files a suit without filing specific performance, the Honorable Apex Court said no, his right of filing specific performance is debarred. Since he has not availed the remedy, since the cause of action accrued to him on the date of injunction suit, therefore he cannot file subsequently, as the provisions of Special Relief Act governed under Article 54, which is of 2 limbs. So this is the judgment in that field. And just now I have said that relinquishment is a compulsory registrable document, which held a precedent of Supreme Court. I request to record 2018 5 ALD, page number 40, Supreme Court. 2018 volume 5 ALD 40 SC, where relinquishment of right, compulsory registration. This is so, and another judgment in the similar lines I have already discussed with you. Mere execution of registered document does not convey title unless vendor possesses right. This is a full bench judgment, or rather division bench judgment. 2016 1 ALT 550. In contra, when vendor has no title, purchases just now has said, that is 2015 5 ALT 627. So another point, initially burden lies always on the plaintiff. Plaintiff has to stand or fall on his legs. He cannot take any undue advantage of the weakness or laches on the part of the defendant. But law is made clear, a defendant in a suit can take any number of inconsistent pleas of his choice. But those inconsistent pleas cannot strengthen the case of the plaintiff. It is the plaintiff who has to show his case by adducing cogent evidence and showing preponderance of probabilities. But the rider to the defendant is, a defendant cannot take inconsistent plea or a plea which is mutually destructive. So this is the rider on the defendant. So simply because that plaintiff has no right, he was stopped and precluded to take any undue advantage of the laches on the part of the defendant at any point of time, because he has to prove his case as he is a plaintiff. Therefore, when unregistered document is denied, everything need to be proved. This is well settled law, even by the Apex Court. Where this I want to refer the judgment. AR 2008 Supreme Court, AR 2008 Supreme Court, page number 1541. So AR 2008 SC 1541 is the judgment of the Honorable Apex Court regarding the burden, how and the manner in which the burden is shifted. And another area where I want to lay upon with regard to I have already discussed regarding the unregistered sale deed and the sale deed, and also the compulsory registrations. And another important area, just for academic purpose, Supreme Court judgment, pleadings are immense importance and foundation to the litigation. Just we have already discussed it, but the reported judgment I want to, I request you to record. 2012 volume 4 SCJ 576. 2012 volume 4 SCJ 576. So This is regarding cancellation of documents, not by unilaterally, it should be by both parties, which is reported 2017 4 ALD 737. 2017 4 ALD 737. Even the registrar has no power unless some fraud is established or pleaded. 2012 2 ALT 557. This is cancellation of register document by registrar has no power, which the Honorable High Court held. No, registrar has no power to cancel document. That is 2012 2 ALT 57. And another judgment, the Honorable Apex Court, because it is also clear, we know everywhere, we had an idea that a document need to be looked into in toto and recitals after going through only a just conclusion the nature of document. But that was held by the Honorable Apex Court 2008 2 SCJ 288. Agreement has to be read as a whole so as to enable the court to ascertain the true intention of the parties. So this is important. 2008 volume 2 SCJ 288. So already I have discussed about the unstamped. Another important area for the Honorable High Court, an unstamped document cannot be received evidence. That is reported 2017 2 ALT 559. 2017 volume 2 ALT 559. Similar is 2016 5 ALT 133. So another point, once a document is impounded, it is good as original. It cannot be distinguished other way. That was held 2017 2 ALT 736. 2017 2 ALT 736. So just now I said the burden of a plaintiff in a suit for declaration of title, ignoring notwithstanding the weakness of the defendant, reported 2017 1 ALD 457. 2017 1 ALD 457. So another point, simply even assuming for a moment, if a fraudulent transaction is entertained by way of registered document, the Honorable High Court held, the Honorable Apex Court held that you all know that when I am not party to a document, I need not seek its cancellation. I need not value it under section 37. Simply what the Honorable Apex Court held, if I am not a party to a document, that impugned document is a result, is a deliberate result of cumulative fraud, mischief, everything. Simply I am entitled to ignore it being a true owner. That is the purport of the law. That way, even the Honorable Apex Court held, I can ignore it. Though a document is executed in between two strangers inter vivas, behind the back of a true owner, the true owner cannot afraid of that there was a register sale to my property, then my right is in cloud, or I need to seek its cancellation by seeking declaration otherwise. Because law is made clear abundantly that when two strangers obtains a document by playing deliberate fraud, he need not seek its cancellation. Simply he can ignore it. And even I cannot, even if for any reason, if I want to seek that document, I need not seek its cancellation straight away. Simply, I can ask the relief to treat that impugned document sham, nominal, bogus, inoperative, null and void, and not binding on me, because I am not a party to the document. That was held by cutting off judgments of the Honorable Apex Court and our High Court, where cancellation of sale deed need not be considered, and the same is ignorable when it is unilateral one. And another point, assuming for a moment, if a document is brought before the court seeking for its exhibition. Then the court held that no question of marking document does not arise unless requires stamp duty and penalty is paid. Whether it can be looked into, whether document had proved in the eye of law is answered with a different footing. But even an unstamped document cannot be relied unless stamp duty and penalty is paid. Reported by the Honorable Apex Court, please note, 2016, Volume 3, SCJ 564. 2016, Volume 3, SCJ 564. So this is, and we have already discussed about, and earlier I told one judgment. I request you to write this, record this, this judgment of the Apex Court regarding 52 of TP Act, where 2011, 1 SCJ, page number 1. Please record. 2011, Volume 1, SCJ, page number 1. This part held, if title of pendente lite transferor is upheld, transferee's title will not be affected. Equities of transfer can be adjusted. This is, you know, earlier the law was, if a suit is pending, if any person transfers that right available to him by executing document, we used to even file a petition under 39 Rule 2A seeking contempt, disobedience, whatnot, everything. But in the evaluation, the law is changed. The Honorable Apex Court made it very clear that document entertained during the pendency of the suit cannot be a void document. It is only subservient to the interest to be adjudicated upon. So that means if plaintiffs, just now discussed, if plaintiffs execute a sale deed during the pendency of the lease, if he succeeds in the suit, the document executed by him in favor of third party during the pendency is valid and legal. That was clear, and it was made very clear. And another area where, though I have not asked to discuss about that point, but always any fraud vitiates everything. Any advantage gained by a party by playing fraud, that is what we mean to say is, if a person by playing a fraud obtains a document deceitfully, what law says that, notwithstanding the lapse of time, assume for a moment 15 years back a person obtains a registered document fraudulently in respect of my property when I am not a party to that. When I notice that fraud after 15 years, that fellow is stopped and precluded to claim any equities because the very document is a fraudulent one. It vitiates limitation also. Even after 20 years also, when it was brought to my notice, I can straight away non-suit the document since it is a result of deliberate fraud and mischief entertained behind the back of true one. So that was the law held insofar as playing a fraud, and that is the reason, and also held suppression of material documents. Nowadays, it is not possible for us to amend and change our pleadings. An amendment to an admission in a pleading is not permitted. What I mean to say, if I say something in the written statement, tomorrow I will come and say, so no, I want to withdraw a particular paragraph of my written statement since I am the dominus litis of my pleading, because a plaintiff is the dominus litis of his plaint. So he cannot withdraw his admission. He can amend the plaint from injunction to declaration, recover a portion, add, subtract, supplement, whatnot. But he cannot permitted to withdraw an admission. This is the law. So a pleading simply cannot be allowed to be withdrawn, which is prejudicial to the rights and claims of your opponent. That was the law. That is the reason it is made clear. And also, I want to say one Supreme Court judgment: suppression of material document would amount to fraud. So withholding or suppressing a material document would also amount to fraud, recorded and reported by the Honorable Apex Court in 2010, Volume 7, SCJ 161. I'll repeat. Suppression of material document would amount to fraud, reported 2010, volume 7, SCJ 161, page number. So this is the area where we are regarding the fraud and these things. So I want to inform you another important judgment regarding the admission and proof, which are two vital areas where we need to ponder upon in proving our right. This is the important area. Simply because that if I file a document and exhibited, then my burden was not relieved of. The further burden is there on my shoulder, which was discussed by the Honorable Apex Court in length. What is admission of document and what is the proof? Both are intertwined, which cannot be segregated, and we cannot delink these two aspects. That what held by the Honorable Apex Court in 2010, volume 3, SCJ 869. Mere admission of document. I will repeat the citation, please. 2010, 3 SCJ 869, where the Honorable Apex Court made it clear abundantly, mere admission of a document does not amount to proof. Mere marking document as exhibit does not dispense proof. It shall be proved by plaintiff adducing evidence, either primary or secondary evidence. So, admission of document is only admission of its contents, but not its truth. This is the important aspect where the dictum, rather the ratio laid down by the Honorable Apex Court in clear terms, unequivocally held by the Apex Court, and this is followed by another Apex Court judgment in the similar lines, which is 2013 1 ALT 18 Supreme Court, page number 18. I'll repeat, 2013 volume 1 ALT 18 Supreme Court. Already I said, decision of a criminal case is not binding on the civil court, which is reported by the Honorable Apex Court. Please record 2009 volume 5 SCJ 485. 2009 5 SCJ 485. So another important area, just I have discussed about the Rangareddy Court and the High Court judgment, that I want to quote the division bench judgment, Justice P.V. Sanjay Kumar Garu. This is Order 12 Rule 6. This is where it will lessen our burden. If we are a defendant counsel, if the pleadings, if we are a plaintiff's counsel, if the defense of the defendant had any admission, it will lessen our burden. So that way, pleadings plays vital role, and that is the judgment which reported 2019. This is important. Please recall. 2019, volume 6, ALD 671 DB. So, Order 12 Rule 6, based on the judgment of the Apex Court, reported 2000 SC, page number 2740. So, an admission, based a decree based on admission, that is Order 12 Rule 6, and even another judgment of our own High Court reported recently, 2019, volume 6, ALD 258, page number. I'll repeat, 2019 6 ALD 258 TS. Admission in WS is alone sufficient to decrease the suit. So where the area we want to ponder upon, we had apprehensions in our minds. No, without adducing evidence, even the Honorable Apex Court, the Honorable High Court of Telangana made recently in 2019 6 ALD that an admission and written statement is sufficient to decrease the suit. This is the area where, and I want to refer another judgment, 2019 3 ALD. Just that is unilateral cancellation without notice to donee is invalid. That is 2019 3 ALD 229, which was followed by recently 2020 volume 1 ALD 75 TS. 2021 ALD 75 TS. So, without notice to the donee, a gift deed cannot be cancelled. This is what we discussed now. And another important point, a presumption regarding a sale deed, registered sale deed. Basically, because we are dwelling with the issue of a document and its efficacy, its impact, and enforceability. So, a registered document had a presumption, what now we discussed. But when the same is challenged, this is the important area. So long as we hold a registered document, it holds good. And in the eye of law, it is a legal valid document. If anybody challenges that document, then its efficacy is underwent. And what the Honorable High Court held, based on the judgment of the what the Apex Court held, that when a registered sale deed, though has a presumption, but when the same is challenged, it must be proved like any other document. This is important. That was held by the Honorable Apex Court in 2019 2 ALD, 2019 2 ALD, page number 24. Please, 2019 2 ALD, page number 24 SC. So, right. And I want to discuss insofar as a gift deed is concerned. Since everybody, we are under the impression that since 122 TP Act mandates that a gift deed is a compulsory registerable document, therefore, if for any reason, if an unregistered gift deed is executed, rather the contents of that particular document reveals that it is a gift deed, in that backdrop, what is the fate of the person holding the document? No, the Honorable High Court made very clear in a reported judgment 2020 Volume 1 ALD 162 AP 2020 Volume 1 ALD 162 unregistered gift deed. Section 33 of Stamp Act was discussed at length in this precedent, where an unregistered gift deed can also be impounded. In those background, if a defendant files an unregistered gift deed in the court, the plaintiff has no option to deny the same on the pretext that it is a mandatory registerable. Can it be received or not for primary purpose or collateral purpose is a different footing. But its impounding cannot be objected, though it is mandatory registerable. This is the which we need to observe. Though a document is compulsory registerable document based on the recitals, but in the event if it is sought for impounding, the opponent has no option to deny it, stating that it is a compulsory registerable document. Proof is concerned, he has to object. This is the area where we need to evaluate the thing. So this is the unregistered gift deed. And I want to another area where it is essential. Everybody feels that, sir, if any compromise is reported in a court, if a decree is passed, naturally the decree is a binding and it is valid and in the eye of law and we are entitled to hold everything. But it's not like that. The Honorable Apex Court made it clear, reported 1995 Volume 5 SCC 769 709. I'll repeat, 1995 Volume 5 SCC 709 court to compromise. So because we are under an erroneous impression that if dependent admits that plaintiff is the title holder in the compromise and if the term is decreed and a compromise decrees in our hands, it cannot be said that plaintiff is having a title over that property. That was discussed by the Honorable Apex Court in 1995 Volume 5 SCC 709, where the court compromise requires registration if rights are created through compromise. This is important. Generally, if plaintiff files a suit with a sale deed, if defendant comes and makes a defense contradicting the claim of the plaintiff, and ultimately amicability was came and a compromise decree is passed where the defendant admitted that plaintiff is the owner based on the sale deed, then there is no necessity of its registration because the plaintiff is already holding a title deed under a valid conveyance deed in the eye of law. In that backdrop, compromise is valid to protect the title deed already vested with the plaintiff. But when a new right is created to the plaintiff or defendant by virtue of that compromise, then the Honorable Apex Court held no. Such compromise cannot have its impact or rather legal enforceability to claim right and title unless and until it requires registration. So that is the important point. We need to look into the efficacy of that compromise in conferring title in the backdrop of facts and circumstances of each case. Just now I evaluated in that backdrop. And already I have discussed it. And this compromise decree, this is 1995 with the Supreme Court judgment, which was followed by again AIR 2006 AP 111 subsequent judgment. And another, just now we have discussed about the part of the document and it can be segregated from the instrument and can be marked. Just now we have discussed, but the precedent now I want to lay upon, that is first judgment AR 1972 Supreme Court 1121, because multiple nature of documents are embedded in one document. That what we discussed about the will. So that part can be segregated and marked. That was held by the Honorable Apex Court, holding that no, that part can be segregated and can be marked, and it does not deprive the rights of the parties when it is registration is optional. That is the reason that was discussed in AR 1972 SC 1121, based on which 2005 5 ALD 206. So this is where part of document can be segregated and it can be marked, provided if it is admissible in evidence for the reasons just now we discussed. So this is 2005 5 ALD 206. So we have also discussed earlier regarding factum of past partition. It does not require registration. That what embodiment of past partition not requires registration, which was held AR 1988 SC 881. I will repeat. Memorandum of factum of past partition embodied in the document does not require registration, which is reported in the judgment of the Honorable Apex Court AIR 1988 SC 881. This was subsequently 2005 volume 5 ALT 616. So this is, and there was what now discussed, there was divergence of opinion or regarding partition deed, the intention of the legislation or the precedents of the apex courts. It depends upon the recitals of the document. So basic distinction insofar as partition deed is concerned, if partition was already affected by meets and bounds earlier, past partition, if that was recorded subsequently, holding that we have partitioned the property, we have enjoying properties as per the partition held, then the Honorable Apex Court with that judgment said that no, it does not require in that background. That is the reason other judgments contradicting or with the divergent opinion. 2016 4 ALT 95 division bench. This is important. 2016 volume 4 ALT 95 division bench, which held not required. What is the dictum, rather ratio laid down by the Honorable High Court in this precedent is a memorandum of family arrangement or instrument containing list of properties to be enjoyed peacefully by each of the sharers cannot be construed as an instrument of partition itself, and it does not require compulsory registration. So there is a thin difference insofar as partition and its compulsory registration is concerned, which need to be gone into minutely. Then only we can ascertain the dictum of the judgments referred in that regard. And another judgment, 2000 2019-6 ALT, page number 6 AP. I'll repeat. 2019-6 ALT, page number 6 AP, section 17 of Registration Act. We have already discussed that registration is compulsory when worth of immovable property more than 100. So in that, the caption of document is Oppudala Patram, that precedent. 2019-6 ALT 6 AP, Registration Act. Marking. Recital shows properties are partitioned by both of them only. Further recites that as and when brother requests for partition, the same shall be effected. The terms are only in the form of an agreement to partition, but it is not a deed of partition. So the distinction, I want to evaluate the distinction, how it made. So that goes to say that the recitals of a particular document are ultimately decisive and determinative to ascertain the nature of document. That what the Honorable Apex Court had discussed and gave a binding effect in the shape of precedents by way of its arbiter dicta and ratio decidendi laid down. That was discussed with these judgments. And there are other judgments in the direction, in the field, and I want to, since my friends permitted, so regarding impounding and validation of unregistered document, one of our friend raised a question, but we have discussed the impounding and validation of unregistered document. Yes, now I am again reiterating that mere impounding a document cannot be equated with that of a registered sale, and the impact of registration when it is mandatory, it cannot be dispensed with unregistered document simply because that it is impounded, but it is only an entry in order to get it exhibited. That what the Honorable Apex Court made it clear. So another thing, cancellation of gift deed. Gift can be cancelled when gift is incomplete and title remains with the donor. That was held by the Honorable Apex Court in Sarojini Amma versus Veludayam Pille, and this is the question. Yes, one thing I want to say, a gift deed can be cancelled, but the law is cancellation of gift incomplete. What is the meaning of incomplete? And the title remains with the donor. So when once a document is right, the question is whether a gift deed can be cancelled if it is incomplete. Right. Assume for a moment a gift deed is executed, a number is given, it was called as a registered gift deed. How can we ascertain that it is incomplete or liable to be registered or liable to be ignored? Then only contingency is if the recitals of gift deed are conditional one. Assume for a moment if the recitals of the gift deed contains some conditional gift. There are gift in several types. If the recitals of the gift deed contemplate some certain conditions, in the event of non-compliance of that conditions, a contingency will arise to seek its cancellation unilaterally, reporting non-compliance of the condition adverted in the document. That way, a gift deed can be cancelled straight away. But law just now we relied upon that simply says, though it is invalid, a void document, but unilateral cancellation cannot be done. That was the law. But in the given circumstances, a gift deed can be cancelled, provided if the recitals of the gift deed speaks that the donee has to comply certain obligation, then only the gift would become effective. In those circumstances, the donor had a liberty straight away seek its cancellation, reporting the non-compliance of the obligation shouldered on the donee in the recitals of the document. That can be done. So this is another area where the gift deed and its impact. And I have already submitted the citations of Suraj Lamp case and another one. So if because some of the questions already impounding and validation of unregistered document we have discussed, and it is very clear that an agreement of sale cannot become a sale deed, and we have already discussed it in that direction. More particularly, I want to inform you one thing, that so far there is no binding effect, I can say in other words, because the Suraj Lamp case, though 2 volumes, 2009 and 11, but it was not finalized in the eye of law because it was referred to larger bench. So when the judgment from the larger bench still awaited, now it cannot be said straight away that it was decided other way. But so far as precedent is concerned, under Article 142 and 144, since any observation of apex court is a binding precedent to all the subordinate judiciary. So that way we can hold the same and keep the same to that extent. But so far as agreement of sale come GPA is concerned, as on date is very clear that it is not a sale deed. It cannot be equated with that of the sale deed in view of the technical anomaly that it contains 2 parts. One is sale and another is the GPA. That was the discussion made in that particular judgment. Friends, I think because one thing I want to make clear, I may be excused since I am not expertise insofar as advancing a lecture is concerned. That way, if any omission and commission, I request you to consider. And though I cannot, I am not in a position to present chronologically, but experience counts. Therefore, I hope that you are satisfied. And once again, I want to thank all of you for your patient hearing all the way. However, I'll try to improve if further. And now I want to once again thank Mr. Sunil, Secretary, Nyayavada Parishad, and its President for affording me a good opportunity to interact with you and all the learned people with you. Therefore, I once again thank you one and all. సరిపోదా